Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees.
Completely upside down for you. Mike, Esterday, Derek Roberts, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to have you.
So you have a fantastic book out called Listen to Sell. We're going to dig into that and all the good things that are in there. But I'm curious, for each of you, give us a 45-second overview of your professional journey that brought you to the work that you're doing today, and maybe some interesting stops along the way as well. Mike, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I'd be glad to, David. I actually started selling in college during my summers. I sold books door to door on straight commission to pay for college. And after that, I was a sales leader and was in real estate and been in sales for, hate to say, 40 years. But love the profession because if you have the right mindset, if you're really trying to help people solve their problems and fill their needs, it's a very fulfilling and noble profession.
Wonderful. Derek, how about you as far as backstory?
No, I started my first business at 18. And, when you start a business, you've got to find an audience. So I began selling by default. And the great thing was I had a fantastic role model. My dad was in IBM sales. If you're going to get sales trading, you should get it from IBM in the 70s and 80s because they set the benchmark, and found myself gravitating into the people side of selling and just enjoying developing relationships, and have grown and developed sales teams in a variety of industries over the last 30 plus years. And Mike and I have been working together. Mike has probably 25 years or so now, at least, in sort of our partnership. So it's been an incredible journey.
Yes. Let's talk about sales for people who hate to sell. This is something where I think very few, even professional salespeople, end up in this role because as a small child, they said, "Mom, Dad, I want to be a salesperson." Right? It's Mom, Dad, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a cop. I want to be a garbage man. I want to be a video game designer. Very few little kids say, "Man, I can't wait to start my sales career." So we either have a whole bunch of accidental salespeople who get trained and who get good at it. So Derek, obviously, like your dad and like you, studying at the knee of a master. But there's a lot of people out there that sort of fell into sales accidentally, or they're on some entrepreneurial path. They start an accounting firm, they start a law firm, they start a consulting firm, and the last thing they want to do is sell. Two questions about that. Number one, why do you think that is? And then how do we start turning around that mindset?
Well, if you think of what people see in movies and TV and how they have experiences with bad salespeople, it's hard to blame them for not wanting to get into sales. If you stop to 10 people on the street of any city, ask them, what do you think of when you think of a salesperson? 9 out of 10 would say pushy and something negative. But what they don't understand is that selling is identifying needs, filling needs, and creating value for people. And today, if you're a professional salesperson, that's really what it is. It's a noble profession. It's not just trying to sell stuff to people. It's trying to solve their problems and create value for people.
David, you started talking about that storyline that we live, right? And so many people sort of fall into sales, and we ask that question. Well, that's really hard to shake because that embeds in what we believe we are, who we are, and what's important to us. And we try to tackle this. What is your view of selling in a way that do you understand that you are a part of the sales equation? It's not what you're representing. It's not just the market. It's not the technology. It's not the price. Customers are buying you. So really, when they say, "I'm not good at sales," or "I don't want to be," what you're saying is the narrative about yourself. I'm not valuable. I don't belong in this equation. And that self-talk is debilitating, unfortunately. And it's part of what has to be reprogrammed. And it goes back to saying, okay, what do I really believe about myself? And then what do I believe about the profession I'm in? How do I define that? And we tell ourselves stories. Sometimes we even lie to ourselves a little bit. And it really impacts how we show up in the sales equation. And we're in some ways on a mission to help people reframe that, both personally in their own conversations in their head, but also who is influencing that? Do they let the storyline of the public narrative, the Glengarry Glen Ross, or do they have somebody that's coaching them and helping them reshape that story?
Yes, 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 yes. Well, I know that we're going to dig in a moment here with listen to sell, but I've got a little bit of a paradoxical question, and I'd love your insights on this. Absolutely, once you're in a sales conversation, it's 100% about listening. I could not agree with that premise more. I think even when people say, I don't like sales, I'm afraid of sales, I'm sales averse, I don't have the sales gene, 90%, this is my belief, and based on working with my clients, and you can confirm whether this is the same for you. What they really mean is, I don't like prospecting. I don't like calling strangers who don't know who I am, don't know what we sell, don't know why it's valuable, and I have to make the case, or I have to do some investigative qualifying, pre-qualifying. The prospecting part, I think, is the hardest, because how many times have we heard a sales professional or an entrepreneur say, oh, if I could just get in front of more prospects, once we're talking, it is great. I love them. They love me. I closed 30, 40% of those sales. We build relationships. It's awesome. Right. It's the door opening part that terrifies people. So as much as listen to sell is an amazing philosophy that we're to get into in a moment, please share with me your prospecting and, B2B, corporate, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. We're calling on these executives who are typically very lazy and very screened behind their assistants and gatekeepers and so on. But what's the listen to sell philosophy around prospecting and door opening conversations?
Well, in the book, Listen to Sell, we talk about different conversations for success. And one is the conversation with the customer, like you say, once you're with them. Another conversation is the one that you have with yourself. And there's probably a lot more of those going on all day long than anything else. That self-talk, that positive, those negative thoughts. The third part is what the coach is having, the conversation. So much of it is they need the skills of how to prospect, but so much of that is mindset. It's saying, what am I doing this for? Is it a customer-focused mindset? Is it something I'm just trying to get something from people? Or is I'm keeping a mindset on the value I can create for these customers? What are the connections I can make? If I can make a personal and a professional connection. Today, we are so fortunate to have so many technologies and LinkedIn and different tools that can help us do research to find that connection. And to come across, I think that prospective clients can tell, they can smell whether you're there for them or for yourself. They can pick that up. Are you trying to sell something in that prospecting call, or are you simply trying to find an opportunity to have a conversation and book that meeting? So much of it, David, is mindset, I think, in addition to the skill set.
Yeah, I think, Mike, you described sort of that internal tension, right? What am I there for? And so often as salespeople, we show up to tell or to get something out of. Our purpose is, what can you do for me? And you know what, at the end of the day, we should receive value for a good transaction. Otherwise, we're not going to be employed.
Yeah.
But I think the best salespeople that we encounter are genuinely curious. I mean, there's a real interest in the beginning that says, I'm going to show up and I want to know something about you. What's important to you? What are you trying to solve? And it goes to the work that you do ahead of time. Mike mentioned sort of that preparation, that planning. There's so much information. If I show up and I haven't done, especially in a B2B setting, if I haven't done the foundational work, I'm wasting everybody's time. So am I genuinely interested in understanding something about you to engage you in a way that then creates opportunity for us to discover partnerships in doing so? And when I miss that door closes pretty fast, because it's clearly obvious that I'm here to get something out of you, and that's a wrong strategy. And so that requires me to prepare really smart questions. And then, as we say in the book, be really engaged in the answers that I get. I have to listen, not just to what you're saying, but what's the meaning behind that? And if I'm not present for that, what's the value in asking my question? So there's this real linkage between professional discipline on the front end, being prepared for the engagement, and then being present in the engagement. And that cracks the door to get into a real conversation.
Derek, you may remember a customer we had that told us, if somebody calls on me and they don't take the time to really prepare and figure out about what's about me and about my organization and ask those smart questions, I don't have the time of day with them.
Yeah, no, that's really, really important. So from a prospect standpoint, I probably get a whole bunch of calls, right? Calls, emails, LinkedIn messages, all kinds of things. 80% of them are screened and I'm protected from. 20% get through. Even the 20% who get through, because I want to talk in a minute about the listen to self philosophy and the training and the coaching that you do with your clients. As a prospect, in the first 10 or 20 seconds, how do I know that I'm talking to a listen to sell trained sales professional versus someone who is not using your methodology, mindset, and skill set?
Seconds matter, don't they? Right? You form impressions right out of the gate. I mean, in our training solutions, we talk about the approach step. And the approach is really, how do I get permission to even be present in the conversation? How do I get permission to ask you substantive conversations? And there's something about those first few seconds that say, I'm fully present. And don't underestimate that, right? When I say something to you, I really want to know what it is that your response means. And so how often, and David, you've experienced this, we've all experienced this, how often do we meet somebody in any setting, and in the first few seconds, we introduce each other? We exchange names, and about 30 seconds into the conversation, you're scratching your head and you're going, oh my gosh, what was their name? I mean, it's that simple that somewhere in those moments, our mind is 3 steps further down in the conversation. And that alone conveys, this is serious. And I'm here for you just to be in this conversation. So, coming out of the gate with something that is relatable, something that is relevant, something that demonstrates that I understand, at least in some context, your world. Now, I don't know everything about your world, but I'm interested in understanding, is there a way for us to find a better outcome for you that sometimes you might not have even thought that you needed yet? And I think that's the art of the salesperson, is showing up with questions, even early on, that say, you know what, there are things that can get you to somewhere where you're not even paying attention to yet, but we could explore that. But that takes work. And so you'll know in moments if I understand your world or not.
In the skills section part of the book, we talk about a communication strategy, a step-by-step process of how to have a conversation with a customer. And in that approach step, there's some action guides. And one is tune the world out and tune the person in. So am I thinking about myself? Do I have a customer-focused attitude? Is it a me attitude? And again, people can pick that up. Another piece of that is identifying behavior styles. That would mean some people have higher energy. Some people want to communicate with more details. So if I can quickly pick up the style of that person, know what my natural style is, and know how to adapt to that person, then we're going to have a connection a little bit quicker. And if we can have in our research 2 things. One, if I can find a personal connection with that person or a business connection, there's a better chance they'll spend more time with us. I was calling on a healthcare organization one time, trying to get through to the CEO, did some research, and I found out this clinical guy on the side had a hobby of, he was a world-renowned harbour of birds. Well, I'd never seen that before. I watched a PBS little 10-minute thing on him on YouTube and brought that up. And we had about a 30-minute conversation instead of a 1-minute conversation. So that preparation can make the difference. All these things we talk about, David, don't work all the time. It's not a magic wand, but we're trying to improve the percentages.
Do you love selling? I know, me too. Do you hate selling? I know, me too. Listen, fantastic sales book you got to get your hands on. How do I know? It's mine. That's how. Do It Selling is now available for sale. Grab your copy, grab all the bonuses, all the companion tools, all the training, all the videos that go with it at doitselling.com. See you over there.
It's Derek, I have this quick funny anecdote about people's names. So I'm terrible at networking. I'm terrible at a lot of things, but networking, I'm really terrible. So I'm at this networking event, and it's an important event, and there's important people there. So I force myself to go. And I'm talking to a gentleman, and let's just say his name is Bob. And so I'm also terrible at remembering names, like you said, because I'm tuned out. My head is going 17 different directions. So Bob, I'm like, okay, I got to remember Bob, got to remember Bob, got to remember Bob. So every other sentence, I'm like, so Bob, I'm curious, what brought you to this event? Bob, I'm curious, are there people here that you'd like to meet? Not every single one, but every second or third one. Anyway, the guy's very warm, very receptive. We have a great, 5-6 minute little networking chat. And he goes to shake my hand and he says, by the way, David, great use of first names. So to me, that sounded like, dude, that's a gimmick and I'm onto your gimmick. The interesting thing was I wasn't doing that for his benefit. I was doing it for my benefit. So I would remember his name, Bob, if I said it a couple of times during the conversation. So Derek, Mike, Derek, I am so glad that we're talking because, Mike just made a great point and then Derek said something brilliant earlier. And of course, we're recording this on Zoom, so I have your names right in front of me. But sometimes you have to be careful that the technique that is helping you doesn't seem like it's a gimmick or some sales training, bad sales training. I put that in air quotes for the listeners that, just use someone's name all the time because that makes you sound genuine. So yeah, let's not do it the gimmicky way. Let's do it the authentic way.
I thought you were going to say at the end that perhaps his name really was Mark or something else.
Oh my goodness.
I thought I had arrived. I didn't.
David, it was great talking to you, but I got to tell you, my name is Mark.
Yeah.
That would have been just desserts. That would have been perfect.
But the premise is true throughout the whole thing is being genuinely present in that, though, right? I'm listening for your name, and missing the name is not a function of just remembering the name. It's a function of recognizing that I want to know what it is that this exchange, is substantive in this exchange. And so, and the danger is actually even greater the more experienced we get. Because how many times have we shown up to a sales conversation and we've had that same conversation 100 times, maybe 1,000 times before? Somebody says a word, it triggers a thought in our mind. Our mind is often running to solutions well far past where that potential prospect is because they're still in the moment of discovery, or they're still evaluating whether this is even a conversation they're interested in having. And we have to train and discipline our mind to be present. I mean, really present in that moment. And that, as I get more capable, as I get more knowledgeable, I want to say more things, right? I'm inclined to tell you what I know. I'm inclined to take you to that journey of destination faster, sometimes faster than you're ready to go. And so that's the art of staying there, exploring that, asking the question, listening to that. And so that's the premise that starts even with the name. And I mentioned that just because it's so easily missed, but it's being intentional in that journey, slowing it down for myself, not slowing the conversation down, but slowing myself down to go, what are you saying? What do you mean? How do you value this? Because when I offer you something, I want to make sure it connects to the thing that is specifically relevant and valuable to you. And David, it's going to be different for you than it was for the last person. It might be the same solution, but it's evaluated and valued differently. And that is why, when Mike and I wrote the book, we leaned specifically into the human side of selling because there's a lot out there, a lot of algorithms, a lot of AI, all these things that will listen to a chat or a word or whatever, and then it'll spit out some kind of offering. But there's a human dynamic here that goes beyond just sort of A plus B equals C. And that's part of what we wanted to emphasize and really highlight the human component and the human salesperson. It's a big deal. And it's fraught with challenges because sometimes we're our own worst enemy.
Well, it's funny, for just to translate this down for our listeners, everything that you're both saying, I think can be boiled down to a great leader or a great teacher or a great mentor, where you've said the following phrase about that person. I love talking to them because they treat me like I'm the most important person in the world at that particular moment. Yeah. And whether that is a one-on-one, whether that's in a public setting, we've all had this experience of talking to someone where they're intense, focus and concentration and curiosity is on us and what we think and what we want and what we say. And you're like, I love this guy. He's a transformational leader, or he's my favorite professor, or this guy is a sales leader I would follow into battle, because they're able to focus on you as if you're the most important person in the world at that moment. And that doesn't mean that they talk. It means the opposite. It means that they're excellent, excellent listeners.
That is so true. And you said the word world. And we've had the opportunity to work with folks in over 130 countries, David. And these are people principles we're talking about.
Yeah.
That are communication principles. So whether this is a salesperson, or it's a sales manager, whether it's a doctor listening to a patient, whether it's someone out there, a consultant that thinks I'm a consultant, I'm giving advice, I'm not a salesperson. We're talking about how do humans interact with each other to uncover what are the needs, problems, wants, desires, and how does someone else understand that and provide a solution for that. And when you think of it that way, these are principles that people use as a parent, as a school teacher, as a soccer coach. We're talking about really effective communication and help them influence people to do something that's in their best interest.
Yes, I love that. So tell us a little bit about the Listen to Sell empire and Integrity Solutions, and what are all the various ways that you work with clients, short-term, medium-term, long-term, one-on-one, group, training, coaching, speaking. What's on the menu? How do you typically serve your clients?
I've never heard it called an empire before. That's kind of an interesting word, so thank you. But we've been around since 1968. So, David, it's not something we just put together and hope it works. This is working with several million clients around the world. We've trained, lots and lots of folks across all kinds of industries. And the focus is not just doing training, but it's really behavior change. How do we shift people's mindset and skill set to have higher performance, create more value for people? Our motto is we're changing the way the world sells and serves people. And what that means is we deliver training, not just in a workshop or a speech, but there's an initial workshop, but then there's a pull through 8 weeks where people practice and are accountable to use the ideas, and the managers are taught how to coach to it. And just like anything you do, whether it's a tennis game or piano playing or whatever, the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. So we're trying to improve skills. How do you ask the right questions, as Derek said, your value proposition, objections, closing, and so forth, but also impacting the mindset. We did a global study a couple years ago asking sales leaders, if you think of your top people, you think about 2 big buckets. One is selling skills and product knowledge. The other is mindset, achievement drive, values, sense of passion. Which one's more important? And 86% of these leaders globally said that second bucket is. It's not just product knowledge and knowing how to sell. You've got to be willing to do it. You got to be willing to make those calls, as you said, to prospect. You got to be willing to ask that extra question, ask people to take an action. And that's mindset. So our focus is really on both of those. And how do we take someone's mindset that might be a paradigm that's, I can only do this much, and help them step out of that. Ask that extra question. Yes, I can call on that senior leader. Yes, I can ask for more money. I can ask for this. And it's so exciting to see the successes when people do that. So we have our own sales team. We have client engagement support people. We have distributors around the world, and just trying to impact the world with stronger professional customer-focused selling skills.
Derek, anything to add as far as kind of the portfolio of services, coaching, training, consulting, et cetera?
Yeah, as Mike said, first and foremost, we've got training resources. And while we absolutely work to impact mindset, and our training philosophy is applied learning over time, right? It's not just dip you in and, hey, check the box, you got trained. We really strive for embedded behavior change because we want this to be a reflection of who you are, not just what you do. And I think that's one of the reasons it resonates with people. So our training philosophy reflects that in the way we deliver that. And so we deal with the sales producer, but we also work specifically with the sales leadership and coaching. I think that's a thread we pull through. It goes up and through the organization because just equipping a frontline producer is only a portion of the equation. You have to have a leadership buy-in, and you actually have to have an organizational buy-in. And so many of our clients have been, 10, 15, 20 plus year clients for this reason, because what we do is we impact the nature of the organization. We often say you can't export what you don't first internally possess. In other words, how can you expect a customer experience to be a certain way, right? We want them to be valued. We want them to engage. We want them to feel as if we're partners, if we're not also cultivating that internally with the employees. You can't have the shell of an organization that says we value people, but we don't do it inside. Right. And yet we want that to happen outside. So the services that we provide, that thread pulls all the way through. And so whether it's the training or the consulting, or in my business as a consulting business adjacent to integrity selling, integrity solutions, the individual coaching, we do a lot of executive leadership coaching all the way up to the very top seat in the organization, because that has to be authentic and pull all the way through.
Our customers, David, are small businesses all the way up to the biggest companies in the world, Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. And we found over the last few years that individuals that want to come to our courses. So we also have open to the public. If you have just one person or a consultant, or you have 3 salespeople, we have an opportunity for a little bit of everybody to learn this process.
Yeah, no, that's really, really great. I want to talk about the book publishing adventure, because many of our listeners, if they're a professional services firm, they embrace thought leadership marketing. So if, again, HR consulting, IT consulting, law firm, accounting firm, they say, hey, there's a lot of accounting firms, but we wrote the book on topic X. Hey, there's a lot of IT consultants, but I wrote the book on topic Y or topic Z. So you have captured lightning in a bottle with the book. Talk about the book writing journey. What was that like? And then the book publishing and the book launch, because that can be sort of a business within a business, can't it?
Yeah, it's not been an easy process. We always heard that it was harder than you thought, and it's taken us actually several years. Derek and I've had this on our to-do list for some time, but it's been a really interesting process to digest what we've learned over the decades and put it into a book. We talked to quite a few different publishers, and we ended up working with one out of Canada, actually, Page 2 publishers. We're known for working with consultants, working with business people, speakers. I know you're part of NSA, a lot of NSA folks, and helping them not just write the book and publish it, but a marketing arm of how do you get the word out? Yeah. How do you use social media? It's not like years ago. We've got 10 other books we've had over the years in our company. And back in the years past, you publish it, you stick it out in the bookstores and hope it sells. But today, it's a lot more complex process.
Man, but don't we, just for a quick second, can we just get nostalgic about those good old days? Because, man, that was easy. That was fun. The publishers actually made sure the book was in something called bookstores. Kids, look it up on Wikipedia.
What's a bookstore?
Buildings that were filled with books.
You've been on this journey. You've published several books of your own. And so you understand there's an effort to synthesizing thought, as Mike said, but sometimes it's choosing what not to say as much as it's choosing what to say. If you simply brain dump into the market, it becomes noise. And you have to zero in on what is that essential message that will translate to an audience in a way that they can do something with it. And for us, it was a real mandate to put something out there that, our audience, the sales and sales leadership audience, would not just read and go, that sounds great, or it resonates with me, but it was something that they could immediately translate into activity with their prospects or with their customers and get movement, right? Movement that was beneficial both to their customers and to them. I mean, if you're going to be in sales, you need to sell something. And so when we structured the book, it was about putting those thoughts not just conceptually on paper, but translating it into a quickly usable, digestible way. So every chapter of our book actually has, at the end of the chapter, a coaching corner. And it's designed to synthesize everything in that chapter, almost like the cliff notes of that chapter, into one sort of discernible thought, and then some very actionable questions or actions that they can translate. And then the last third of the book is actually written specifically to sales coaches or as a sales coach, so that anybody in the book can go, well, what do I do about this? And we've got a third of the book written in such a way that says, well, try this, or here when you're in a situation, and we bring anecdotes and situations. And so when you it's a using book, not just a reading book. And that process it was intentional for us, but it took an extra amount of work for us to make sure that it translated in that way.
And I know from your listeners, David, you said you have a lot of consultants that listen to your podcast. And I would really recommend that they think through having a book, whether they self-publish or go with, a big publisher. Because for us, we hope to sell a lot of books, and hopefully listeners here will go to Amazon and read it, buy it, and have a good review.
Right.
But the goal here is not just to sell a bunch of books. It's really a calling card for us. And our sales team, they have a goal each week of how many people they're sending this book to. If they want to talk to the CEO of a company, they're sending the book with a personal note relating to something they've read online or from the annual report. And this is a door opener for us then to have a conversation about our other services. You sell the book, it's X amount of money. If we sell our consulting and our training, it's a lot more. So it might be something for your listeners to really consider and to proceed with.
And I love what you said there, Mike, but I want to go back to what Derek said as well. It's not just yet another book. I think, in the world of consulting, speaking, training, etc., there's this idea of just get any book out there. And as you know, and as you have done, and as I know, and as I hope I've done, it needs to be a good book.
Yes.
It needs to be,
Yes.
It can't just be crap and say, hey, I'm a best-selling author and I hit the Amazon #1 at Tuesday at 2:00 in the morning. And, then it went back into the bargain bin. So, kudos to you for putting all of these decades of experience, distilling it, summarizing it, making it actionable, making it consumable, and making it so valuable. It's not just a book or any book. It's the best book that you can possibly write that's going to be an evergreen asset that pulls business to you for years to come.
Excellent point. You don't want something out there and people actually look at it or read it and say, nah, I don't want to talk to this person.
Right. Does the world need another fill in the blank book, leadership book, strategy book, innovation book, sales book? Probably not. Do they need your best ideas? Yes, absolutely.
Hey, if you're loving this episode as much as I am, pop over to doitmarketing.com/manifesto and get your free 37-page download guide to how to sell smarter, sell more easily, sell more often. That's what we're here to help you with at The Selling Show. Off you go.
Well, this has been so incredibly fabulous. As we're landing the plane, share with us if people were to take one core concept from the listen to sell philosophy, mindset, skill set approach. For each of you, what would you hope that core concept or core takeaway would be?
David, I think one of the things that is deep in our soul is this idea that selling is a noble profession. We use that word and it's a bit of a contrast, right? Noble, selling, you don't think about that. And even sometimes the word profession doesn't attach to that. But it really goes to the root of, some of the inhibitors that people have, that if I embrace what really is the definition of selling, selling is identifying needs, meeting people's needs, helping them create value, in some cases, building relationships. There is something that when I show up, the experience is going to be different because I bring something to the equation that is going to help you, that we're going to explore. If there is a match, that there is a net value to you as we work together. And if I believe that, that shapes what I do. I have to bring a level of professionalism that goes along that. But it's also recognizing there's something sort of inherently noble about it. And that word catches people off guard. And it's not just that I'm providing good solutions to my customer, but we have to remember that no one has a job until a sale is made. And so when I recognize that I am the tip of the spear to the organization that I represent, I create livelihood opportunities for the people around me and behind me. That's motivating. And when I do it in the right way, and when I do it with the sort of authenticity and urgency, there's something inherently great about that. And so whatever label you put on it, call it sales, call it service. At the end of the day, I don't care. I'd just call it sales because I feel like, let's just call it what it is. It's going and helping to create opportunities. If a listener can embrace that and really wrestle through that and come to a confident place, what we call in our congruence model, that there is a synergy of understanding and authenticity. The how they do it is actually the easier part. And we explain all that in the book, but I think that's where we really start.
Brilliant.
I probably shouldn't have pitched it to you first, Derek, because I would have said something else about noble selling.
You snooze, you lose, Mike.
That's it. But I'd say probably if I had to put it in one word is belief. That so much of success is around belief. Do I believe I'm creating value for people? Do I believe I deserve to have success? Do I believe I'm worthy of being the number one person? Most people tend to perform at the level they think they can perform on. And maybe I was average in school and sports and last 3 jobs I've had, and therefore probably average here. But if I believe that I can be more successful, I'm going to accomplish more. That goes also, it's true for managers. It's what do managers believe about their people? We have something called the law of limited performance. Most managers look at somebody, they watch their performance for a while. They go, they're an average performer, they're this, they're that. But do they believe that person? Can they see more in that person than that person sees in him or herself? Because most people rise to the level of belief that their managers have in them. So I'd say belief is a critical part. We talk about that a lot in the first part of the book.
Yeah, so important. I know people will want to get connected and stay connected to more Derek and Mike brilliance. Where can we send people? What resources, what links shall we share in the show notes?
Well, if you want to go for the book, if you go to listentosellbook.com, there's various ways to get that. You actually get a free download if you want to do that. Amazon, any of the places, bookstores has the book. For Integrity Solutions, it's integritysolutions.com. And on that, there are actually hundreds of free resources, blogs and videos and all kinds of things you're welcome to use. Derek and I are both on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with us, and we'd be glad to share any ideas and hopefully create some value for you.
We're an advocate for the sales professional and sales leader. And so we'll answer questions, we'll engage. We are thrilled to be a part of your journey, whether that's in a professional partnership sense or just as a colleague. Share thoughts. Let's have a dialogue. We're in the process of learning, just like everybody else. We're sharing some experiences along the way, but Mike and I are also want to hear what other people have done well. And so connect with us. Let's be a part of this community together.
Love that. Well, Derek Roberts, Mike Esterday, you are both rock stars. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for sharing all of this wisdom with us on the show.
David, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.